All right. Well, we're back. We're back. We're back. And happy Transit Equity Day to everyone. We hope everyone is enjoying it. If you're in a city that has a fare free transit, please take full advantage of that and share it with everyone that you know who maybe is not as transit prone or doesn't take transit as much. Today's a really wonderful day to explore. But today I'm in Philadelphia, where I'm with Marcus McKnight. Now, if you've been with the Transit Equity Network, we did a recording 2 years ago where he talked a little bit about Philly. But now we're in Philly, and for Transit Equity Day, I wanted to get a little bit deeper into the weeds, and especially because not only is he an organizer for transit, he's also an operator of transit. So we're going to talk with him a little bit. But I wanted to kind of get it in the sense of you as an operator and an organizer. So how long have you been doing both?
Okay, so funny thing. First of all, I can't believe it's been 2 years already.
2 years.
Time flies, we're having fun. 2 years. 2 years since the last time we did an interview.
Right.
Y'all, when we do interviews, it gets kind of funny, it gets kind of wild. I'm telling you right now.
And there will be a live stream after.
You are going to be laughing at this by the time it's over. And it's not even noon yet. Oh, wait, sorry. It's not even 12:30 yet. It's afternoon. We were supposed to start a little while ago, and then life happened.
Yes.
Okay. So, in regards to your question, I've been doing transit organizing and operating for about 5 years now, since 2019.
5 years. So you've seen it all, and especially because you're an operator, so you're. And I've said this to a lot on a lot of lives, and especially within the Transit Equity Network. You know, as labor, you see a lot more of the system than riders do. You get scheduling. You're seeing a lot of the maintenance that has to go into a lot of the vehicles. You're seeing a lot of the ins and outs that a lot of the riders and a lot of people like myself don't see. How important is that to have a voice like yours within this line of work?
So, without your operators, without your frontline employees, transit does not function. Even if everything was automated, you still need somebody to fix that and to put in your schedules and do all that behind the scenes work. So it's very important to make sure you have that perspective when you're doing anything involving transit.
Absolutely. So you're also with Philly TRU. Philly is probably one of the largest cities with like a really transit dependent population. What are some of the big things that's plaguing the system right now as far as the transit community?
Ooh, we can be here for the next 3 hours talking about this. Yeah. Goodness gracious. All right. So let's start the beginning here. The biggest issue in our region, and this goes here in Philadelphia with SEPTA and across the river in New Jersey with New Jersey Transit. The biggest issue right now is funding. Mm-hmm. Public transit funding needs to get situated because it is a mess. So when I was younger, the running joke was every 3 years, SEPTA is having a going out of business sale when they propose service cuts and fare increases over and over and over again. And every time this comes up, the government bails out the last second with some kind of assistance, some kind of aid. And it's like, all right, put a Band-Aid over a wound, all right? We got this for a few years, and then, at some point, we're going to come up with a plan for transit funding. Y'all, we've been doing this way too long. There needs to be a dedicated source of funding for operating. There needs to be a dedicated source of funding for capital. Make a bill, make a law, pass some type of tax, something, allocate resources so that there is money available for operating and capital that increases over time that nobody can ever touch. No one can touch it all. And just get it out of the way. Make a super great bill now. Take the time to do that so you don't have to worry about it later. As the phrase goes, do it right or do it twice.
Right. And it's so interesting, and especially given like with the Commonwealth of Pennsylvania, you have Greater Philly, and then you also have Pittsburgh. Shout out to Pittsburgh's for public transit. And then like all the rest of the counties within the Commonwealth, like every single county has transit. So why is there not a dedicated source of funding already?
It's interesting that you mentioned that. Pennsylvania has 67 counties and about 70 or so transit operating authorities in the 67 counties. Every county has some form of public transit. In a place like, I don't know, in the middle of Pennsylvania, it might not be, a bus every 15, 20 minutes, but there's something there so that people can get around in different places. up in the Poconos at the Pocono Pony. If I remember correctly, they have the largest operating territory in the state. And it's like folks, that might live in Harrisburg or Lancaster might not be aware that there's public transit up there, but because they don't go up there that often. Right. However, those folks are up there that rely on transit, and they don't have that much of a voice, and they need to have a larger voice. And unfortunately, in these smaller counties and things like that, with these smaller areas, there are people that rely on transit as a lifeline for them, but the majority of the people drive. So the politicians tend to skew towards folks who drive and who aren't as transit dependent because that's not the majority of the voters who live in those areas. So that's kind of like something that's on the back burner to them. And it's not their fault because that's just how the geography is in those areas. Right. But if they had more of a voice, they would be able to be like, okay, wait, there is public transit here. It is important. So I think that there would be a better outcome for transit if more people had a voice and if more people were at the table to have these conversations. Right. And that would help things out a lot. Right. I hope that answers your question.
Yeah, absolutely. And especially, going to also the fact that we're in Black History Month. How important is it, as a person of color to be in this space?
Okay, so I believe you went to an event called, what was it, Transportation Camp, right? Okay. In D.C. Mm-hmm. Bakari went to Transportation Camp in D.C. And he picked up this great book called Inclusive Transportation, a Manifesto for Repairing Divided Communities. It is written by Veronica O. Davis and is a foreword by Tamika Butler. So I have a wonderful transit schedule bookmark for 2 parts that I think will answer your question. Let me just read this real quick. So the first part is the foreword by Tamika Butler, and I'm holding this as if I am holding a picture book because, guys, in addition to being a transit advocate and a transit operator, I'm also a substitute school teacher, so I'm used to teaching, reading, and English, so forgive me for having a classroom moment. All right, so here it says, again, this is the foreword by Tamika Butler, Esquire. This is really, really important. So, for decades, Black planners, public health professionals, engineers, and the community stakeholders who we represent have been calling for racial equity in all facets of urban planning, allied fields, and Black life. Prior to 2020, our words and thoughts were greeted with applause, praise, and maybe a mention via social media or academic citation. In 2020, the uneven impacts of the COVID-19 pandemic, the daily stories of racism in shared urban spaces such as bike lanes, parks, and sidewalks, and our common witness of George Floyd's murder in a public street placed racial equity center stage for urban planning professionals. As the world protested the multiple unjust murders of Black people, the nation's power structure offered appeasements. But was real change on the way? Was real action a possibility? That's something to think about, people. Now, we're going to go ahead. That was a foreword by Tamika Butler. We're going to move on to page 79 of this awesome book, again, written by Veronica O. Davis. And I'm about to quote something that she wrote. And let's see. It says, a great quote from a former American baseball player, Vernon Law, is, experience is a hard teacher because she gives the test first and the lesson afterward. Okay? And she mentions that when she's talking about church versus bikes and the library police. It's an awesome segment I'm in the process in the middle of reading. And it talks about how you had Black churches in a gentrifying neighborhood, okay? So these Black churches have been here for generations, maybe starting as early as the earlier 20th century, right? Extending through the Great Depression, World War II, Korea, Vietnam, the civil rights movements of the 50s and 60s, the women's rights and the flower child movement during the 70s with environmental issues. Then you had the drug epidemic of the 80s and 90s. and then revitalization turned gentrification in the early 2000s. Okay, and so also the book states that crime in the 1990s and more affordable large houses and surrounding DC suburbs drove many black middle class residents out of the neighborhood and out of DC. However, on Sundays, former residents returned to their former neighborhood to attend church services that many had grown up in and their families have attended for multiple generations. Lack of adequate public transit on Sundays necessitated driving to church, creating on-street parking challenges. When the neighborhood had vacant lots, it was not an issue. That was pre-gentrification, folks, 90s, early 2000s. But in 2015, the newly developed parcels and new residents in the historic single-family homes reduced the Sunday parking to on-street parking and any off-street parking the church had available. Parishioners started double parking on the street. New residences were calling parking enforcement on churchgoers. This created a tension between historically black churches and new, mostly white residents. And then a bike lane was proposed. So, as a black person, we should really say this for the after show. But as a black person who works in the transit industry and who has experience in meeting and involvement with transit planning in Philadelphia, I gotta stop laughing because, I only thought this was a thing that happened in Philadelphia. Apparently, in the year 2024, I learned I was wrong. Very wrong. White people, how dare you? What is wrong with you? Why are you calling the police on black people? Stop that. It's Black History Month. I am here to tell you, stop calling the police on black people. Anything does not warrant calling the police or some kind of law enforcement for a citation. Talk to people. What is wrong with you? Why don't you know how to talk to people? I'm thoroughly confused. Please enlighten me. I'm Marky PHL on Twitter, MARKY_PHL. So if you want to send me a tweet about this and tell me why you can't talk to black people about issues, you let me know. And I'm willing to have a conversation with you. We have glasses of wine, see here. Hey, wine. We will have a glass of wine, have a discussion. As a black person in this industry, it is important that we have a say, a seat at the table, so you guys can understand how you can how you can solve the trans issues that you want and not screw over the people that's been there a long time. We're talking about transit equity. So one of the things I've noticed on Twitter recently is a lot of conversations about like mixed use development, 15-minute cities, things of that nature, right? And this involves transit too, getting around these neighborhoods, things like that. They're new people who just got to a city. A 15-minute city is nothing new. Mixed use development is nothing new. If you go into the inner city, you'll see a lot of businesses on the main street with stores on the bottom and businesses on top. A lot of those places, back in the day, black neighborhoods, Irish neighborhoods, Jewish neighborhoods, they had those things. My mom, an African-American union representative, she's also a throat specialist at a city hospital for like 25, 30 years. She had started a union at Tip Hospital here in Philadelphia. Mm-hmm. She always tells me stories. When she grew up in North Philadelphia with her siblings, there was 10 of them. You didn't leave North Philly. No, everything was there. Doctors, schools, pharmacy, market, jobs. North Philadelphia, broadly, how it was called Garment Square. You had factories that were there in which people produced your cotton, your textiles, your clothes, things like that. All that stuff is done in North Philly. That's called Garment Square, Brewery Town. It was called Brewery Town because there were dozens of breweries here. And only because I mentioned breweries, listen, we're in Philadelphia, so we got to represent. We got Evil Genius. And we got Victory Brewing Company, who just released a Tasty Cake Coffee Cake Ale. And if you get a chance, go try it. It is good. And of course, I mentioned Tasty Cake. There's nothing more Philadelphia than a Tasty Cake. Here we have some jelly crimpets because I'm a Philadelphian through and through. And, if I had a cheesesteak, I'd be sitting here with a cheesesteak right now. I'm truly a Philadelphian. All right, let's get back on subject here. So, and a soft pretzel. I'm sorry, I almost forgot. You didn't leave your neighborhood for anything. Oh, my glasses. All these things were there for you. And a lot of folks that are moving into cities don't understand. They got their ass all the stuff left. And they're like, oh, folks got to drive to the grocery store and they don't want to walk anywhere because all the stuff we had is gone. Race riots during the 60s, white flight, the drug epidemic during the 80s, 90s, and 90s. All that stuff were catalysts to get all of those businesses to move out of the inner city and move out of urban areas to more suburban areas where they can have their parking and have the... I love cities. I'm a city person through and through. But I can also understand why somebody might want to put some type of business somewhere because that's a lot to deal with. Right now in Philadelphia and in other urban places, we had those racial protests after the unfortunate murder of George Floyd. Places has got vandalized, looted. And a lot of mom and pop business closed after that because they couldn't afford the insurance. When you have those issues happening in inner city neighborhoods, the cost of insurance goes up. So they can't afford the insurance. If you can't have the insurance, you can't stay open. You're going to close. So that means you're going to lose that in that neighborhood, that business. And it's important that these stories from the inner city are heard because you'll have folks that might graduate from some school in Minnesota or Wisconsin or Texas, and then they move to a larger, poorer city like Philadelphia, like Detroit, like Chicago, and they don't understand. They don't understand that experience. They've never been a part of abject poverty before. Right. So, but these folks with these degrees who come from these great schools and want to make a difference, as well intended as the ideas are, when they propose their ideas, they're not thinking about those people that are different from them. So those people that are different from them need to have a voice so we can make sure these things are equitable and they are getting the things out that they need. If that makes sense.
Absolutely. And especially because a lot of consultants also are a huge, I don't want to say issue, but I don't think they get to, well, I mean, given the limited time and resources that they have, I don't think they get enough time to learn about the people in the neighborhood. There's never like an opportunity to, well, first off, of figuring out where the center of culture for a neighborhood is, but more or less also figuring out how to work with different neighborhoods, how to go to certain groups of folks within the neighborhoods, and then ask them what they want instead of proposing things for them.
That's you know what, you brought up a very, very, very good point. So in Philadelphia, we're working on a project called Bus Revolution. Mm-hmm. It is a very, I'm trying to think of the word to describe it. It's a topic that it really rubs people different ways. And the transit group that did the consultants that went out to the neighborhoods and did talk to people, like you said, they didn't have enough time. There's a project timeline. They want to get this, this program started to help revolutionize public transit in Philly. But unfortunately, folks that live in a downtown area or in a gentrified area, they have a different lifestyle, a different work schedule compared to somebody that lives in an inner city neighborhood. And it's very, very important that folks understand the nuances behind that. If I have a job that I can work from home or I got flex time, if I got a job that allows me to work 9 to 5 for a long lunch or whatever, I can make it to a transit meeting. I got time after work to go to, a hearing or something and educate myself on transit issues and talk about those things because my job allows me to do that. But if I'm working a blue collar job or I'm working something that's not accessible, as like a bus driver, like a police officer, even maybe a school teacher in certain cases, a factory worker. If I work in the restaurant industry, I'm just thinking of all these other things.
Or if you work 2 jobs.
I'm about to get to that one too. I can't make those meetings. And God forbid you're a single parent or low income, you're working 2 and 3 jobs. You know, you don't have time to go to meetings. You know, when we have these transit meetings, and these transit hearings, you see, you know, again, more organized, more wealthier, more often than not, wider groups talking about all these issues. Like, oh, this is the voice of public transit. Listen to him. Okay, so where's my buddy that's on the overnight shuttle bus or the overnight transit? You know, going to work, getting to work at 3:30, 4 o'clock in the morning, and working 12, 13 hours a day. Or, you know, I got one buddy, I was talking about Tasty Cake, you know, these awesome crimpets. You know, my buddy, I have a really good friend of mine. And I'm not gonna mention him because, you know, we can't go into that. He works, he picks up extra shifts at his job. He'll go in, you know, 6 o'clock in the morning, 5 o'clock. He might get up at 9 or 10 at night. So when he gets home, he's going to bed, do what we got to do, get up and get into work the next day because he got to make that money for whatever the goals he needs to accomplish. His voice ain't being heard because he's on public transit. He's on the overnight shuttle bus and the late night 33, the last subway, the streetcar or wherever. His voice isn't getting heard because he's working. But public transit is important. It's essential to him. But nobody hears what he has to say. And then, like, when you have these meetings, the consultants can't get to him because of where he's working at. And then, you know, the transit agencies aren't doing enough active outreach to reach some people. And then you have these issues when you want to have a bus revolution or change something to make it better. It's like, well, this is what the public wants. No, this is what the public that you heard from wants. That's not enough. That's not a high enough percentage. That's not whatever. That's not enough people. And then you have the counter arguments. There was stuff online. There was, I don't have time to go online. I might have a time to check after my bus schedule. I got stuff to do. You have to meet me. If you're changing something to make it better for me or my community, you need to meet me and my community to have these conversations. Philadelphia is known as the city of neighborhoods. We have over 100 neighborhoods and our 137 square miles. So, personally, if I was planning anything in regards to transit, guess what? I'm hitting 95% of those over 100 neighborhoods in 137 square miles. And if that means I got to go out and do outreach for 2 years to get to people and give them my phone number, give them my Twitter, give them a website, have them drop stuff off at the bus stop, the bus loop, give it to the bus stop, to turn it to the district at that time. If I got to spend the money to do like the return envelopes, whatever, back in the day, I'm going to do it because that's what I'm going to do to get out to these people so they can understand, hey, public transit is here for you. It will make this the best for you. But in order for us to make this the best for you, we got to hear from you. Absolutely. I'll take those extra steps to make sure we can hear from these people. Too many people's voices are being heard.
Right. Yeah, I think that's really good. And I will say the Philly TRU has really done a tremendous job, and I've worked with you all before. Like I love the fact that you all have and serve as the space for people to have their voices heard. So I commend a lot of you for what you all are doing, and I continue to encourage you to do that. So PhillyTRU.org. Follow Marcus McKnight at MarkyPHL on Twitter, and allow his voice and other voices to be heard. They're out here, and especially a lot of them are also within the transit system as well. So definitely put their voices out there. But Marcus McKnight, as always, it's a pleasure.
Okay, I just want to add one more thing. First of all, it's a pleasure to always be with you, Bakari. It's great to have these great conversations, and I truly hope this is not the end of this conversation. You know, I would like this conversation to continue, not with just us, but with other people across the region and across the country. However, there is I can't think of the guy's name right now, but there's a famous person who says something along the lines of, if you want to learn how to change something, make something better, talk to the person that's doing it already. It's not that hard, and that's what you need to do. You want to make public transit better? Talk to them frontline employees. You know, we have a nationwide transit operator shortage. You'll see alerts on Twitter like, due to operator unavailability, this route isn't running, or something along the lines. New York is like, we're running as much service as we can with the equipment and operators that we have available. It's not that hard to search the end the operator crisis. I can end this thing in a week. A week. You want to know how you end the operator crisis? Talk to operators. That's it. Talk to them. Treat them like human beings. Give them a seat at a table. Listen to them. Respect their opinions. And the problems will go away. I talk to operators all across the country, and they all want the same thing. Whether it's Chicago, Los Angeles, Seattle, Miami, Philadelphia, Portland, Maine, Portland, Oregon, or Boston, Mass. They all want the same thing. They just want to be heard. They want their problems solved. They want to be respected. They don't want to be treated like the gum on the bottom of your shoe, on their shoe. If you give them common courtesy and basic respect, the problems will go away. You pay me $41 an hour, and people can still spit at me, talk to me in your kind of way, throw liquids at me, assault me. I'm still not coming to work. Nip these quality of life issues in the bud, and 99% of your problems will go away. Trust your employees. You hired them for a reason. Have their backs. And miracles will happen overnight. The faster you do that, the faster public transit will improve across the country for your riders. And things will get so much better. But Bakari, I enjoyed this wonderful conversation with you.
Absolutely. And we're definitely going to have more conversations like this. And we're going to bring much larger groups in this. So if you know anyone that could definitely benefit from this conversation, or if you know anyone that has a CDL and would like to be an operator, please pass on these opportunities to them. And then also, we have a website, www.laborforsustainability.org/transit equity. Definitely go on, check to see what kind of actions are going on in your community, and connect folks to this work. We need to expand this work out to as many people as possible. But, Marcus, it's always been a pleasure. We're going to continue to have this conversation.
All righty. Oh, and one more thing. Today is Transit Equity Day. It is Sunday, February 4th. So today is Rosa Parks' birthday. So happy birthday, Rosa Parks.
Happy birthday.
Here we are. That was great.
Wonderful.
Awesome.